Hearing Youth, an ICMS podcast series proudly brought to you by the 10th Council of ICMS Malaysia Chapter.
A very good day to all our listeners, no matter where you are or from which time zone that you're tuning in. Welcome to the ICMS Hearing Youth Podcast. And today we're going to do a little bit of time travel together. So this year, 2020, marks the 10th anniversary from when ICMS was founded. It's a very unique year for all of us all over the world. And in this special episode, we will attempt to honor our past, celebrate our present, and inspire our future as we travel through the past 10 years of journey for ICMS and also for our personal selves. But before we start, let me just introduce myself. My name is Jing Lin, and in 2016, I was the Deputy National Executive Director for the ICMS Malaysia chapter. A little while after that, I was the Deputy Chairperson of the ICMS Alumni Network from 2018 to early 2020. I'm now working in PwC Singapore as an associate. So today, I'm very thrilled to be joined by Jordan and Daiwei, whom I'm sure will be sharing a lot of great things with us. Jordan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, guys. I'm a current senator of ICMS and also the associate of ICMS Third Council. I was running the I Square, the first I Square ever, as the deputy director. And currently, I am working in AirAsia as a special projects senior exec in HR.
Great, thank you, Jordan.
There we have it.
Daiwei, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Jing Lin. I'm Daiwei. I was the Chief Executive Director of ICMS in 2019 to early 2020. So that was just a year ago. I am currently still studying. I just recently finished my second year at Imperial College, studying mathematics. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So I'm guessing many of our listeners would know ICMS for the shape and form that it takes today. That we are established in 6 different countries, that we host many personal and professional development programs all year round, and that we are a congregation point for all aspiring Malaysian youths who are keen to become better versions of themselves. Now, this is where I will bring us to start our time travel journey to take us all the way back to 2010, where ICMS first had its humble beginnings in the UK. And back then, we just had a very small group of very passionate individuals who had this vision to start an organization that helps students to develop themselves. That was our first council, the first group who also saw this opportunity for Malaysian youths to take an active stand and make a positive impact in our country. So that is when we also started the first ever Malaysian public policy competition. A few years after that, in 2013, that's when Jordan, your batch, came in and incepted another one of our most iconic flagship events, the Industry Insights. So, Jordan, why not share with us how ICMS was at that time and what sparked the idea behind starting iSquare?
How ICMS was okay. I think back in 2013, ICMS was definitely very, very small. Um, and in fact, we only had members in UK and primarily in LSE. So that was probably where everyone in the council was from as well. So when I got to know about ICMS, the founder, Lewis, he approached me and said he wanted to start a career event in Malaysia. And the problem we wanted to solve back then was that students in Malaysia didn't have, awareness about the sort of opportunities to jobs that they could apply themselves to after they graduate. And this was very, very different from the students based in UK because we had a lot of career fairs, a lot of different sessions, and a lot of exposure to what happens after university. And that's what we wanted to recreate, and that was what I was tasked to bring to Malaysia. In fact, the way we coined it was Malaysia's first interdisciplinary career session that was also immersive, and that was what stood out for us back then in 2013.
Right. And I certainly have to say that your batch, as well as those before you, have laid such an exceptional foundation for us in the later stages. I think we see that in between 2014 to 2015, we have expanded our presence to not just cover Malaysia and the UK, but also establish our footprint in 4 more countries, including Singapore, Hong Kong, the USA, and Canada. And then further on, from myself, I stepped in 2016, right? The council was already in such a ready state to impact more and more Malaysian students who are eager to develop themselves in so many different ways. I Square also stood the test of time, and even until today, we are continuously finding ways to reinvent ourselves and revamp the whole I Square program. And I wonder if Daiwei, you can share a bit about what you have seen in I Square just last year.
Yeah, so throughout while we were still planning for I Squared, we had several meetings with John and his team, the I Squared team, and I think this this the state of I Square at that point in time was quite constant since a few years back. So when we were sitting down to talk about I Square and how we can bring perhaps a different experience to our participants, we really had to think about how to innovate um, and to make it more interesting than it was in the past. And that was certainly no easy case because as John himself was a participant as well, it was already well crafted in a sense, but we did see the need for some change. And um, through constant discussion with the team and people working together, I think what we tried to do differently last year was to make it um, a storyline based event where you started off. You had these different companies who dealt with different things, and the storyline that we went with last year was um, the Olympics in general, and we tried to. It was basically all these different companies working on different aspects of organizing an Olympics game, and we tried to make the challenge really was to connect the dots between each different company and to make sure that it was one cohesive storyline. And I think we were largely successful in making that come to fruition, and we were quite happy with the results that I Square 2019 brought to the table.
Yeah, and I think one thing that is so core to the identity of Industry Insights is definitely how it pieces a lot of different industries and a lot of companies together. Last year, we had our partners, Sunway, EY, Maybank, who come from different industries. And on top of that, our sponsors, Axiata, and we also had Samsung as an event sponsor last year. So all these different industries, and somehow we managed to piece them all together and give a very immersive experience to all our participants and let them take home a piece of knowledge about what it is like to have all these experiences in all these different industries. And that, I think, is the most value-adding experience that iSquare has to offer.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So this year, I'm sure we can look forward to many great things as well. I'm aware that our applications are still open at the time of recording. So if you're interested, do pay attention to our social media on iSquare and also ICMS's main page as well. So let's draw the conversation back to ICMS a bit, right? I think one thing that is core to us is that ICMS, although it had its beginnings in the UK, slowly went to Malaysia and then expanded to 4 more different countries, right? And now it stands as a multinational kind of student organization. And I'm sure, Daiwei, from your experience last year, you would have a lot to share about how is this experience of running a multinational student organization. Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, thanks, Jing Lin. Perhaps I could start from the point when I was elected to be the chief executive director. It was quite a surprising thing for me, despite the entire application process and yeah, having to have gone through every single thing from writing the application essays to the multiple rounds of interviews. And when I finally was in that position, it didn't take long for me to realize that this was not something that I was really prepared for and that I had to learn on the go. And I appreciated that there were that the past council had had put on their faith that I could run the council. But very much so, there was a lot of learning that had to be done, and I think that was perhaps one of the most that was perhaps something that I appreciated most about ICMS, how it helped me in my growth. But back to the question, right, about how it felt to run a multinational organization. Um, First of all, the first thing that we really had to adapt to was to work the different time zones. There were many times where I had to wake up at 6 in the morning or stay up to the wee hours at 2 a.m. to take a call to discuss urgent matters. And it took some time to adapt to that kind of lifestyle. But I realized that once you are able to adapt to this, you also learn that there are ways to manage your time better, and there are also ways to ensure that you continue to still live quite a high healthy lifestyle in terms of having a healthy sleep schedule. And so that was the portion about how there was a need to adapt to the time zone. But more than that, I think the most challenging aspect of running ICMS was uh, to work with the different people within, because I feel like having many people who are competent and who know what they're doing can be a double-edged sword at times. And I think the main challenge really was to set a culture that allowed for all these different pieces to work together in harmony, so that we can reach the potential that the full potential that we are capable of. And I remember having many discussions with Jing Lin and Jalok and my partner Jin Mei during that period of time, especially at the start, to think about what can we do to make sure that people can work in harmony, and um, that the efficiency of our operations were good enough for us to be able to continue to impact not only our target audiences, the students that are still studying in university, but also make sure that in the process of pre- um, creating these events and initiatives for the outside, that we continue to also um, be able to nurture those within ICMS to be able, so that when they do leave ICMS, that they bring sort of like a good experience with them and many learnings that they can take with them when they start with the working world. Which I feel that for Jordan and Jinglin, you guys have left ICMS and perhaps have been able to use these things, and you can maybe elaborate more on this later on.
Thank you, Daiwei. And what I really loved about your leadership last year is that you had such a conscious and also constant awareness about ICMS being an ecosystem. And this ecosystem, in the natural state, you would have your elements, your water, your plants, and everything that comes together in harmony, right? And for you, I think you've been very aware of we have our front-facing team who is dealing with our stakeholders, working with our partners and sponsors, and also our participants and the students out there. And we also have our powerhouse inside that is, responsible for generating all this content. And then in between, we have a lot of our support functions that pulls all of these things together and make sure that the council can run smoothly. And I think this is the ecosystem that we have been so aware that really helps us run the council smoothly, even though we are being placed in multiple different countries and multiple different time zones. And I guess that's an exceptional experience that ICMS has been able to offer us, especially after the whole expansion has happened, right? But I think for Jordan, my question for you would be, because you would have a very different but equally exceptional experience, I'm sure, in ICMS. And I'm curious, back when you first joined ICMS, how did it feel for you, and what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced?
Okay. Honestly, I didn't go through the typical interview route. I was just invited in to run the project, and when Louis first told me about it, I was like, wow, I'm joining ICMS, and the only thing I know about it was this really elite student council for elitist people, and this was really back then already, and that is not true at all. When I was in there, I just learned that it's not that people in ICMS are elite; it's that everybody is very decisive and very ambitious, right? They have a single-minded goal of progressing, having a clear idea of where their career should go to and how to progress towards it. So anyway, once I was in ICMS and I was working on industry insights, I have to agree with Daiwi, which is that the biggest challenge, I think one of the biggest obstacles is how do you manage a two things actually. First is how do you start something from scratch with no idea? You have an end goal in mind and the process has not been crafted yet. You have no idea how to run. How do you do that? And the second part of it is even more challenging. How do you do this with a powerhouse team that each individual member has their own idea of how it should be run, right? And I was the deputy director at the time. My director himself needed to set that direction very clear, needed to be able and he needed to be able to answer every question that the team members give to him. It's about inspiring the team members and how we're able to give them the confidence in trusting us. So coming in new, right, with a very new team, I think the director and I were able to say, okay, this is the plan. What we want to do is individual workshops, and to balance with the sort of freedom that they should have in executing their work, right? So we laid down the vision. We then say, this is the workshops we want to run. Each of you have your accountabilities and run off, go ahead and execute it and come back to us. And that was the huge challenge really, which was knowing what needed to be given direction and what freedom to give out in order for things to be done. With such a really capable team that keeps questioning every decision of yours, you need to be certain on all this. And that's very difficult. So kudos to Daiwi, man. You have a huge regional team to work with, and that's very difficult.
Yeah, it's great actually. I think I can definitely relate to that experience. And you know how in ICMS we always have a lot of this kind of intellectual discourse, right? Where we just constantly bounce ideas off each other and discussing, really diving deep into why we're doing this, what is the objective that we're trying to achieve. And for me personally, I was actually quite intimidated in the beginning. Because as a student, right, I did participate in many clubs and societies before. But when I first joined ICMS, it struck me as something so different. And there's a lot to say about, how every of these, are very outstanding, very driven individuals that I meet in ICMS. And each day, until today, I continue to be inspired by that amount of energy. But at the start, right, there's a lot of the intimidating part is me questioning myself. Am I actually good enough for this organization? How am I how am I going to find my footing here? How am I going to add value? Yeah, exactly. So I've been very, very lucky. I back then I had a great mentor who was very constant in terms of reminding me of the potentials, the rooms for improvements, the opportunities that I had if I was, even brave enough to go and grab all of them. So while I'm glad that I absorbed it all, on top of it, I'm actually more grateful for having someone who is willing to go the extra mile to care about my growth. And I think at the end of the day, it's really about moments and individuals like these, right, that have the potential of transforming your life so much for the better. So for this, I hope we can, take a moment to think about all these significant moments and share a bit, because I think this journey is not without its struggles, but also it has a lot of these kind of significant moments. So I wanted to take some time to talk about these significant moments for a bit, and I hope to know what are some of the fondest moment, the greatest moment that both of you had from your time in ICMS. Any of you want to share first?
I can go first. I think the fondest moments for me, definitely, part of it would be the outcome of I Square, right? Where you have this huge sense of achievement of pulling off something that was never done before with your team. But I think the whole enjoyment that I really had was the whole process of doing it. The nights we spent, like as Daiwi said, up to 1, 2 a.m. just discussing the principles, setting down the principles of how I Square should be run, who are accountable for what kind of workshops needed to be done. I actually enjoyed that whole process of it. And I think that's where all the learning happens, right? You don't know what you're doing. Honestly, most of the time I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I don't know. But, when you sit down with your team members and start to iron things out, it becomes really fun for me. And I think that whole process of discovering and learning is actually the highlight for me. Not so much of the outcome, because regardless of whatever result you achieve, right? If you've done your best, you've followed the process you've laid out and have faith in it, that's where the real enjoyment kicks in with your team members. It's that whole
Yeah, that's
camaraderie.
wonderful. I wanted to ask Jordan, especially since a lot of your greatest memories is actually surrounding the whole process of starting I Square from scratch, right? Did you at that time foresee
Yeah.
that until today, 2020, you would still see I Square happening and in taking a slightly different form today?
Yeah. Honestly, guys, back when you're a student, you just say, I have an ice cream, I gotta do a good job, we'll worry about the rest later. And that's 99% of the time occupying your mind, right? Frankly, I'm really, really impressed that iSquare lasted up to today. And in fact, they reached out to AirAsia to collaborate together this year. And that's something one of my team's working on
Wonderful.
as well. So really impressive, guys. I did not foresee this, honestly. So
Yeah, and you would have come
well
full
done.
circle, from starting it from scratch until now, actually joining, potentially joining as running the workshop yourself
Exactly.
as a company. So I think that's such a wonderful story to tell.
It is, and in fact, it's surprising for me because as a student, right, you imagine that when you work with sponsors, you think that I need the sponsors more than the sponsors need me, right? That's how I felt back then, and we were chasing everyone to Talent Corp, Maybank, Gamuda, and asking for sponsorship. And then now that I'm at the other side of the table, you realize that holy crap, you guys might not know this, but people in ICMS are really high potential talents, and just because in your immediate social circle, everyone's like that, so you think that everyone out there is the same as I, really ambitious and driven. But once you're at the corporate level and you take a look at the base of students you have, not that is actually not the case. So the way I see AirAsia sees ICMS is that it's a pool of real high potential talent that we can tap into, and we really, really want students like that to join the company. So, the point I'm trying to drive across here is that the things that you guys are doing in ICMS, you might not think it's a huge deal at all, but from a corporate perspective, right, we think that everything ICMS is doing is really amazing. Not a lot of people can do that and dare to do that, and these are the sort of talents we want. So better not take it for granted, guys. Those who are listening, you are getting the real cream of the crop. You are getting the best content out there, and you are part of it as well in creating that. So do appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have heard it from the perspective, like you said, from the other side, because you are so absorbed in your current circle that you only see whoever's nearest to you, and because everyone is
Yeah.
like that, then you feel as though you're not up
Yeah.
to par, right? But at these moments, it's so important to have perspectives that you shared, and to quote Daiwei, to take a step back and see things from the bigger picture. Now, maybe Daiwei, you haven't had the chance to share your significant moments, right? Why not you take some time to share with us?
Yeah, no problem. Before I share, I'll try to share something different from John, but I think that really, if I had to answer that question first, that would also sort of be what I would be talking about. Just really the entire process of learning and figuring things out even when you don't have the answers, and working with other people to come together to find that solution to the problems that you're looking at. I think that really was most significant for me, something that I still take with me today, even though I just left a few months ago. But in I realized that in everything that uh, I've done since then, there has been a lot more structure and a lot more tenacity when it comes to facing these problems, because I know that from my experience, I was able to overcome all these problems before, just by working hard and working with others, willing to collaborate, and being able to listen to other people's opinions, even though you might disagree. And I think that has been really helpful thus far, and I have no doubt that it will continue to be helpful for me. So I'll talk about perhaps something else that was significant to me, and it was really being able to nurture the next generation of ICMS associates, particularly the 10th council, the ones that are currently part of ICMS. I think one of the main focuses that my council came in wanting to solve was to increase the value of an associateship. And through that, we had to figure out how best we can deliver this, besides being able to manage events better, being able to manage projects better. And we worked really hard to bring back ICMS Academy, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, was part of the council back in the sixth council and potentially even until the seventh council, but has been discontinued since then. And I'm happy to see that um, the work that we worked on in restructuring and being able to bring back ICMS Academy to make sure that it's sustainable enough to last for a few more years. And hopefully, maybe if I come back for another podcast 7 years later, just as Jordan is, 7 years after bringing ICMS together, that
Man, I'm
ICMS
old.
Academy would still be around and would still be able to bring these developmental opportunities to our associates. I think that was really significant to me, just on a personal level, where I know that in my life, one of the things that I really want to do is to be able to nurture others and to be able to help people realize their full potentials. And through the time council and seeing that the amazing work that they've been doing this year, I'm quite happy that on a personal level that I was able to achieve this alongside with the team, my council working together to bring forward the ICMS Academy and a better JADP program, which was the Junior Associate Developmental Program, something that everyone goes through before they ascend to become directors and associates of ICMS.
And I love that you went through a lot of deep thinking about how the associates, how our members are going to experience the whole ICMS Academy journey. Because you are definitely right in that the whole idea was already incubated back when I was in the Sixth Council in 2016. And over the years, right, we've been very iterative about this approach into perfecting the whole concept of setting up this ICMS Academy so that our associates can learn from. And I think that way, your year really did a good job in launching this to the next level. And I'm very excited to see how ICMS Academy will be in the few years to come. And maybe like you shared, 7 years later, it will take a different form, but maybe it would be a form that we would also enjoy at that time. So if I were to ask myself, right, I mean, since both of you shared such amazing things about the significant moments in ICMS, and I think it's really hard to top it off. And I have to admit, I myself struggle a lot with finding this single moment in ICMS that I'm really particularly fond of, because there's just so many fond moments. But I can clearly recount a very special moment last year during our internal summer retreat. It involved our associates from all the different national chapters, and a couple of us alumni were also there. Daiwei, you were there too. And somehow, right, in the middle of the night, we were just gathering at the open hall at the retreat facility and started bursting into this random karaoke session where everybody just sang random songs together. I think that moment really left a mark in me because it was so precious, right? So precious to have found a community that is so driven, so capable, and yet so closely knitted together. Even though for many of us, that was actually the first time us physically meeting each other face to face, because previously we've only been communicating online. And yet we have been able to bond, we have been able to share such significant moments together when we actually meet. So it was a very, very warm feeling. Right.
Definitely. I think what made it even more memorable was that we just went through our general assembly, and that was a very tiring process in its own. There were a lot of preparation, and we knew that the next morning we had to wake up at 6 a.m. But we were there to 3 a.m., 4 a.m., knowing that we would get 2 hours of sleep after, even after being so exhausted from general assembly. So that was really a wonderful experience.
Yes.
It sounds like all of us have very the same experience, right? But it's all about the people and about that.
And the funny thing is, it all involves like severe lack of sleep.
Yeah, that is true.
Disclaimer: we are not.
And guys, you know what? When you start working, When you start working, it's the same. It's the same. If you want to work in a team, that is the kind of team you should be looking for, where you can have fun, right? Even with severe lack of
And
sleep.
despite having lack of sleep, lack of rest, those were the moments where we actually felt most alive. Am I right to say that?
Yeah. The past 3 months have been very difficult for me, but I really enjoyed it because of the
Yes,
team.
definitely.
Yeah.
Right. So from here, I think we've completed quite a good walk down the memory lane. And it's safe to say that for all of us, our time here in ICMS has played a very significant role in our personal development journeys. So let's start to, shift our time travel a little bit to the present and share how has ICMS impacted you as a person to become who you are today. Jordan, would you like to share first?
Yeah, sure. Ooh, that's difficult. I think that there's two aspects to it for ICMS. I think when you're associated with ICMS, you either, or you could be doing both. You could be participating in the kind of events that ICMS organizes, or you could be the one organizing it. And when you participate, you meet people, and you meet the same kinds of people, right? Who are like you, who are trying to find out what they want to do with their careers, who are ambitious, who are very driven, and for me, what happened for me was that it actually made me take a good hard look at the sort of career I wanted. Back then, in 2013, everybody around me wanted to be management consultants, investment bankers. Either you go to a Magic Circle law firm or a Big Five. I'm sorry, the bulge bracket banks, and it's probably still true today. But what happened was that I thought about it for myself, and the sort of opportunities ICMS talks about, right? We when we did I Square, there was also engineering firms, construction firms like Gamuda. There's um, consulting firms like EY, sorry, audit firms like EY, and it made me take a good deep look and to say, is this what I want to do, um, down 5 years down the road? So I think ICMS gave me that sort of career awareness that I didn't actually have before. For me back then, I was like, okay, I'll just go and study what I enjoy, which was mathematics as well, and but I didn't think too much on that career level. So that's one. The second part of it is actually on the skills building. So when it comes to, say, organizing industry insights, there was a lot of things that I didn't do before, that I didn't know and I was not aware of the skills I lacked and what I needed to do about it. So ICMS gave me a chance to learn about myself at a deeper level, that perhaps I was not a good leader as I thought I would be. Perhaps I wasn't good at solving problems, in a certain way. Right? Oh, sorry, solving problems. I wasn't good at solving problems, as well as I thought I would have. Sorry, let me correct that sentence. I was not a good problem solver than what I thought I was. So, you know, as Darwi said before, nobody actually fits in a mold, from the get go, right? You kind of grow into it, and ICMS gave me that good platform to reflect upon what I was good or what I was bad at and what I could improve on. So to be more specific, lacked I back then I lacked the skills to coordinate a very strong team when I first started. But over the course of a period, you kind of learn how to deal with different personalities and how to align team members towards that goal. So that has actually helped me a lot in the current work that I do, because a lot of the times I don't work with the same team members. I work with a lot of different departments, and I need to be able to quickly align the goals with them and to execute in a very short period of time. And ICMS gave me that, level of confidence because I had the experience to do so. Sorry, a bit long-winded, but I hope I got the point across, which was that it taught me essential skills in terms of managing and working with people that are needed today.
Definitely,
Okay.
definitely. That's very
Yeah.
important. Thank you. Daiwi, what about you?
Yeah. s- I think I can't really talk about the specific skills that I've really been able to benefit from, seeing that after I stepped down in end of February, early March. It was really 3 months of exam preparations and not really having the time to do many other things. So, but if I had to imagine what it would look like in terms of the skills, I did touch upon this a fair bit just now, but perhaps I can share a story um, about how I was able to, look at something without being fearful that we were not going to be able to solve that problem. I remember once when my external outreach publicity director Ring brought some marketing material to me and as someone who isn't particularly artistic, having to look at it and think whether this was a to approve whether this marketing material could go out. I remember having to go through this entire learning process of asking, just trying to ask questions. And I think that was a skill that allowed me to face a lot of these problems by asking questions, by really getting to understand the problem much better from the different perspectives. And I find that once you are able to do that, once you're able to identify what the core issue is, or ask questions to be able to understand what you're dealing with better, that you actually solve the problems much better. And also you spend less time really it's clear and directed when you're working towards finding the solution, because you know what the problem is. So that was, I feel that that would be one of the most important things that I can take away. But not really talking about something that I've been able to experience ever since leaving ICMS. It's really that the learnings that I've been able to get hasn't ever stopped since then. I have been blessed with many mentors throughout my tenure, Jing Lin, to name a few. And even now, as I been planning about what I want to do with my future, I can continue to lean onto them for advice and for them to share their experiences. Particularly, for example, I'm currently thinking of doing my masters in the US, and the first person that I thought about was Jalok, because I knew that from my interactions with him that he did a masters in the US, and I was able to speak about this in more detail to understand this much better. And I feel that this part comes with the connections that you make throughout ICMS, the like-minded people who seemingly all have quite similar ambitions, to in terms of the careers that they want to do. And it was good that I was able to lean onto the people that I've met to help pave the way for me much better. And yeah, that definitely is one thing that I'm most grateful for, and something that I have been able to take away from my experience in ICMS.
That's amazing, and I'm very very happy to know that there's so much in common in our experiences. Because for me personally, in a professional sense, it was also because of ICMS that I've been exposed to the professional services industry, and that has played a huge role, of course, in landing my career today. But on a personal level, just like you, that way, there are so many things that I have learned just by being involved, just by being on the ground and running this organization. I learned to carry myself better. I learned to communicate better. I learned to solve problems better, form better relationships, and be more self-aware. And on top of that, right, there's so many other things. Like I learned about strategic planning as a student. And strategic planning, right? Essentially, it's about charting out the best path for you to get where you want to be from where you are today. So it is knowing that ICMS has such amazing potential to let someone grow so much that now I also want to be part of sustaining this platform to support others in getting where they want to be, just like how I did. And I guess that is why I continue to be an advisor and a mentor to some of our juniors here. And I'm glad that this is a core part of the ICMS identity that we can all have a common say about.
Yeah, I just want to add that the sort of things students do in ICMS really stands out if you're thinking about a CV perspective. So I have worked with the recruiting team in AirAsia as well, and typically, first class is cool and all that. But what we really want to look at are students who can think for themselves. And this usually shows in their CV by the sort of activities that they've organized and the sort of things that they have created. And I think ICMS gives that kind of platform for you to do it, right? Because via these activities, you learn how to problem solve, you learn how to strategically plan. And if that's what you want recruiters to see you as, then you should be not just participating, but actively organizing and creating things.
Yeah, take this from a recruiter, guys. Very important tip.
I'm taking down.
Yeah, that's what the recruiting team has to look at.
This will be very helpful in the future when I start applying for jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can give tips for the team if you want. I can run a session on how to do a perfect
think-
CV and what to
I think we
say
can do
about
a special episode for this alone.
yeah, probably.
All right. And I think now we've talked a fair bit about the past, the present, and even about what we want to see in ICMS in the future. And now I think we have a better appreciation of how we have come a long way, both in a personal sense or how ICMS has also come a long way since its founding days. But I'm glad to say that, one thing that remains constant is definitely our strong purpose to build and support youths in their respective development journeys. And this year, even though COVID-19 has definitely brought upon a lot of significant impact to our lives and the way we interact with each other, I'm so glad to know that our juniors in ICMS, like I said earlier, to have found ways to reinvent ourselves and continue adding value to those around us. Now, a lot of our initiatives have been launched virtually. And earlier in April, we actually launched a fundraising virtual concert that managed to raise more than 30,000 ringgit to support our frontliners.
Wow.
To support our frontliners battle against the pandemic. And in May, we also released a compilation of all the graduate and internship opportunities that we have found that is still available to Malaysian students. And then in the next coming few months, we have industry insights, we have the Malaysian public policy competition. They are still going to happen. And right now, here we are creating podcasts to share our thoughts about growth. So in the spirit of growth and development, right, before we end this episode, I just wanted to ask Jordan and Daiwei, what is one thing that you wish to share with our listeners, to all our aspiring youths out there?
Okay, I think I'll start. And one thing I would like to share is that, if you are one of those students, which I was when I was still a student back in uni, and I always thought that I was not doing well. I always felt the need to compare with others, and I never felt really sufficient. Don't do that. I know it's easy to say, but honestly, you know, the only reason why you think that way is because you see what the output is from other people, and you think, wow, can I do that? The truth of the matter is that nobody really knows what they're doing. We're all fumbling and jumbling and failing, and you as a spectator, you don't see those failures because you don't know what's really going on. So the message I want to give to our listeners is that just whatever you want to do, just try it out and do it, and fail. It's okay to fail. And you know what? Nobody's going to know that you failed because they're just spectators. They don't know what happens on the back end. And in fact, even in my corporate life, I do a lot of new initiatives and I fail a lot. And I go, oh, damn it! Why did I do that? Or this is a stupid idea. There's no such thing as right or wrong. There's only good and better managed. And the people are only going to see the good things that you have done. So go ahead, go do whatever you want, and don't be afraid to fail. Yeah, that's the message I want
And
to
that
deliver.
is wonderful.
You are perfect.
That is
already.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Daiwei, what about you?
I think the one message that I would really want people to take away is the importance of meeting the right people and mixing with the right people. And it's something that I was able to get in abundance in ICMS. But regardless of where you are, this is always possible, right? Because I do believe that, it can be quite common to the phrase that you are the average of your 5 closest friends, and I will say that from my personal experience, um, the reason why I've been able to do the many things that I have been able to do at this point in time, which obviously is, as Jordan has pointed out, is not for comparison, obviously, and is my own journey that I've been on. I do believe that a lot of it has been attributed to the people I've been able to meet and mix around with, and from it's nice to always have people around you who encourages you to be a better version of yourselves, who will be there for you when things go bad, to support you and lift you up during your toughest times. I think those were really things that I am grateful for, and that I've been able to get through ICMS, and that I will continue to make a conscious effort to do in the future. Yeah.
Wonderful. And for me, if there's one message that I wish to share with all of you who are listening today, is that start where you are, and there's no amount of impact that can be too small. Whether it is for yourself or for others, change can only happen if you initiate it. And if there's one takeaway that you can learn from, knowing about ICMS's humble beginnings, knowing about each of our paths during our times in ICMS, it is, starting from a handful of people, we've managed to grow and to be able to impact thousands of people today. So if there's a takeaway, let this be it. Start where you are, watch yourself as you see your impact towards others grow. And that would be the message I wish to share. So with that, our time travel unfortunately have to come to an end. And in closing, I would just want to thank Jordan and Daiwei. It's been such a pleasure to have shared our experiences together. And it really warms my heart to know that, no matter which year that we join, ICMS has left such a significant mark in our lives. And this is an identity that can stay with us throughout, to withstand the test of time. Thank you too to all our listeners who have stayed with us throughout this journey, and I hope that you've had just as much fun as we did while creating this episode. So if you did find our sharings insightful, do keep an eye on our flagship events, MPPC and iSquare, and also our ICMS main page on Instagram or Facebook as well, to get updates about when will we open our applications and things like that. And with that, that's all for today's episode of Hearing Youth, where youth heard it first. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.